My mother-in-law's hobby is collecting photos of people sleeping last week. I finally learned why for 5 years I'd catch Helen sneaking photos of anyone who dozed off at family gatherings. My husband Dan sleeping on the couch, grand kifs, napping in car seats, even the pastor who nodded off during her 70th birthday party. She'd giggle like a teenager and refuse to explain. Mom's always been weird, Dan would shrug, at least it's harmless. I wasn't so sure. Her phone had thousands of sleeping photos, all carefully organized in folders with dates and names. She even had a leather-bound album labeled The Sleepers that she'd clutch protectively whenever anyone asked about it. Things escalated when she started bringing a professional camera to events. The clicking sound would wake people up, but Helen just smiled and said she was documenting family history. Last Thanksgiving, I woke from a food coma to find her inches from my face, adjusting her camera lens. Your mouth was open, she whispered excitedly, like a little fish. I'd had enough while helping her prepare Christmas dinner. I casually mentioned finding it creepy. Helen just patted my hand. One day you'll understand, dear. The truth came out at her friend Margaret's funeral last week. Helen had been asked to share memories, and she brought the Sleepers album to the podium. Margaret and I made a pact 40 years ago, she began, flipping through pages. We were new mothers, exhausted, never sleeping. We joked that we'd forgotten what peaceful sleep looked like. She showed a photo of Margaret asleep in a hospital chair, holding newborn twins. So we started collecting evidence that rest was possible, that someday we'd sleep again. The album revealed decades of friendship through sleeping photos. Margaret at Helen's kitchen table, face planted in text forms. Helen drooling on Margaret's shoulder during a road trip. Their husbands passed out on recliners after Thanksgiving dinners. Every photo reminded us that even in chaos, we found moments of peace, Helen continued. When Margaret's husband died, she couldn't sleep for months. So I made her a mini album of all the times she'd slept soundly over the years. Proof that peace would come again. She turned to a recent photo. Eyes Margaret in her hospital bed, finally sleeping after weeks of insomnia from chemo. The nurses said it was her first real sleep in months. I am so glad I captured it. The church was silent except for sniffles. Helen closed the album. Margaret's last text to me was a sleeping photo. Me knocked out in the hospital waiting room. She wrote, still collecting proof of peace. Your turn to rest now. After the service, I found Helen in the parking lot, carefully photographing a baby sleeping in a car seat. For when his mother needs reminding that exhaustion ends, she explained that night. I understood. Dan's father had died when he was 15. Helen, suddenly a single mother, probably never slept soundly. These photos weren't just quirky habits. Minus they were promises that rest was possible even after loss. I asked to see Dan's folder crankers of photos spanning decades. Baby Dan milk drunk and peaceful exited. Dan crashed on textbooks. Parrot Zen on our honeymoon finally relaxed. I gave him an album when his dad died, Helen said quietly, to show him that even though life was hard, he'd still find moments of rest. That it was okay to stop being the man of the house sometimes. Now I help her take photos. Last month we captured my sister-in-law sleeping upright while breastfeeding. She'll need this in a few months, Helen said, carefully noting the date. Helen's getting older. Sometimes I catch her dozing in her garden chair, and I quietly take photos. I am building her an album for when she needs reminding that after a lifetime of documenting others' peace, she's earned her own. She pretends not to notice when the camera clicks.